So as I started to hear from the bodies, I would say to the people, would you mind if I just told you what I'm hearing? And they're like, no. And I would say it and they'd say yes. And they'd burst into tears. And so then it would be this whole synchronicity of people coming in with illnesses. I start to work on them, and all the bodies started talking, and we were able to put the pieces of the puzzle together of why they were sick or injured or had an illness or a disease or whatever they had. And pretty soon people were able to go, yeah, I didn't know that those emotions or that trauma was still in my body and was keeping my body stuck, the tissue stuck. And then that's where disease and illness happens, or just injury, or, just pain. And it was a really interesting phenomenon. It's like I was learning along with them. So then pretty soon, I really don't think I've ever said something where it didn't resonate with someone. Like I don't guess. I hear and I talk now. Now it's like me and the body are just having this conversation all day long. And it has been so powerful for people to really put the pieces of their life together.
My guest today might look familiar because it's the third time she is back on my show. My guest today is my good friend, Kristen Hustead, who is, as I have said for many years to her, one of these days she is going to be like an extremely well-known healer. Her healing abilities have touched many people in my life, and she and I have very deep connections with signs and synchronicities, and her stories are absolutely incredible. And so I invited her back because she has written a book. She spent some time last summer writing this book at my house. So I feel like I helped birth maybe this book, and we'll talk about that towards the end of our interview. But Kristen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lori. I'm so happy to be here. I was looking forward to it all month. So the very
Oh my
last day of
gosh.
the
Well,
month.
Kristen, it's weird because the transition of a show like this is odd because very early on I had very, very spiritual people, but I didn't have a big audience. So you
Right.
were one of my very first, you may have been one of my very first, if not the first interview I ever did, because we would go on these hikes together and you would tell
Yeah.
me these incredible stories of healing. And we're like, we need to like get you on my show and talk about this. And I have sent many people to you over the years, and I get to hear from them how the healings have affected them. So
Hmm.
if anybody is watching who is not familiar with Kristen, her video should have gone to thousands of people. But unfortunately, when I did them, my show was too new and I didn't have a big enough audience. So I wanted to have her back because she just has an extraordinary gift that she's been sharing with the world for a long time. And I just want to have an amazing collaborative conversation with her today.
Thank you. Wow. That makes me feel very special. Thank you, Lori.
You are very special. Like, I consider you one of my dear friends. You know that.
Yes.
We've spent a
Yes.
lot of time together. And unfortunately, you moved like an hour and a half away, and we don't see
Yes.
each other as often as we used to. But it's like we came on camera, and it's like I just saw you yesterday.
Exactly. That's what friends are for. You pick up where you leave off. But
Exactly.
yes, I love
So
it.
I would love for you to share kind of what you've been working on in the world because you have your own practice and you work with people all the time. So tell me what you're up to right now.
Okay. Well, I've been in practice since 2017. And over the course of these, 8 years, I have seen amazing things enough to where now I can actually verbalize them, where before I'd be like, what is going on? And so growth has caught up to what I have been witnessing. And so when I first started working on people, I'm a fascial stretch therapist. That's what I started out with. And then people started telling me I had healing touch and things like that. And so then they directed me towards this Reiki, my Reiki practitioner master. Her name is Brenda. And so I went to her and she said, you have a healing touch. So she trained me in Reiki. And so that's kind of how my story went. It's like one thing led to another. And then I went and got grief and trauma counselor certified. I am a medical intuitive. So all these things started coming to me as I personally healed from my own trauma. So it was a kind of a interesting twist. As I'm healing from my trauma and I'm walking into this newness, I'm starting to get these profound gifts of just intuition and healing. And not, I don't heal anyone, but being that vessel, right? Of that conduit. And so some of the great stories is when I first started out, I would just be working on someone, stretching them, and I'd hear things like father molested by father, or childhood trauma, or I would hear childhood abuse, or anything like that. I started to hear this stuff, and I started to test because I was like, why am I hearing this? Like, why? At first, I thought I was daydreaming. Like, why am I daydreaming about someone getting molested, and this woman, and it just started to dawn on me that I was hearing from the body. So the body keeps the score, right? Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, which I later on educated myself on that book. But so as I started to hear from the bodies, I would say to the people, would you mind if I just told you what I'm hearing? And they're like, no. And I would say it and they'd say yes, and they'd burst into tears. And so then it would be this whole synchronicity of people coming in with illnesses. I start to work on them, and all the bodies started talking, and we were able to put the pieces of the puzzle together of why they were sick or injured or had an illness or a disease or whatever they had. And pretty soon people were able to go, I didn't know that those emotions or that trauma was still in my body and was keeping my body stuck, the tissue stuck. And then that's where disease and illness happens, or just injury, or, just pain. And it was a really interesting phenomenon. It's like I was learning along with them. So then pretty soon, I really don't think I've ever said something where it didn't resonate with someone. Like I don't guess. I hear and I talk now. Now it's like me and the body are just having this conversation all day long. And it has been so powerful for people to really put the pieces of their life together. And it would, I guess it would be somewhat like going to hypnosis, right? Where your subconscious mind would talk and you would find out things. I talk for the subconscious because the body is your subconscious mind. And so it's just a gift, right? And I'm very thankful for it. So I never want to say I do it. I receive and I speak out loud. But so those are some of the stories that started me in this. And then one of the most profound ones, and it is in my book because it like almost knocked me off my socks. Like I was like, what just happened? But I was at just a woman's house and I was working on her. She just had some, rotator cuff issues, and we just couldn't get on top of it. But every time I worked on her, she would talk about her husband and how incredibly sad he was because he had lost two children. It was her second husband and his second wife. And I'd hear this story over and over, and I'd be like, I think this is why your shoulder's hurting so bad. And people always go, well, I fell. I go, yeah, you fell, but the fascia tissue locks up when we fall, and then also emotions get stuck. So it's a both a physical and an emotional thing. So I said, why don't you see if he'll see me? Because he wouldn't go to counseling. And she's like, I doubt it. And I said, okay. So she asked him. Next time I arrived at their house, when I was back in Phoenix, I would go to people's houses when I first started. And so I bring my little table, and she said, hey, he'll see you. And I said, well, that's amazing. Okay. So I set up the table, and I didn't know how to approach it. Like, do you want me to do Reiki? I always want to be very, very gentle with doing anything out of someone's comfort zone. So I just started stretching him to release his sorrow. And he said, could you do that Reiki thing on me? And I said, absolutely. He goes, I've heard about you and I am desperate for help. So I led him in this guided meditation that somehow along the way, I was led to this guided meditation, which a little bit reminds me of Dolores Cannon with her, the way when she does her or did her hypnosis, how people would go into this hypnotic state. Well, in this guided meditation that I was led to come across or put together, people like literally leave their body and they go up to a higher dimension. And I stopped trying to figure it out. They go up to what we would call heaven or a place of healing in the light. And however that is for anyone, is it God, your higher self, spirit, creator? It is up to a higher level. So as I'm leading him up into this meadow, just to relax his body and get him in the parasympathetic nervous system state, really relaxed and in the theta brainwave state. He just kind of checks out, and I could tell he was in a meditative state. So intuitively, I can see things. I can see things in the spiritual world. So I saw him walking with two like light beings, these like light figures, and I was just hoping that it was his sons, but I wasn't like in the conversation. I just could see it. So again, that's another gift that came, was just seeing energy and seeing and angels and things like that, or past loved ones. So anyways, after about 20 minutes, I let him down and he opened his eyes and he started bawling and crying and saying, my sons were up in the meadow. One was on my right and one was on my left, and they were looking at me, and he was just floored. And he said, and they are so happy in heaven. And they told me to go on with my life. And I'm going, whoa, that was pretty powerful. So he was crying, I was crying. I leave, come back the next week to work on him. And his wife meets me in the driveway, and she goes, he cried all night long after you left last week, saying, I saw God, and my boys are happy in heaven. He couldn't get over himself. She was like, almost like thinking like he had a hallucination. And I told her, I said, hey, there's something that happens when my clients go up there. And so what happened was he had a profound interaction with his boys on the other side. So this time when I came, he wanted to go straight up again. And this time he didn't even want to stretch. He didn't want to relax his body. So we let him up again. And this time I didn't just lead him to the meadow, I led him up to the light. And I just left him there for about 45 minutes, brought him back down. And this time he's saying, I saw God and I was greeted by all my loved ones. He goes, I am not alone. He kept crying, I am not alone. All my loved ones are there. It was like a party. And he said, my boys walked me up the stairs, because I have these steps that go up to the light. And he goes, my boys walked me up to the light. And this time I saw two gods. And he said, I saw the God of the brokenhearted. And he was like going like this. He goes, that's me. I'm broken. He goes, and I saw the God of everyone, but they're one and the same. So it was a profound healing. He said, my boys are happy, and I'm going to be happy no matter if I leave this earth or I don't. So he walked back down. I walked him back down the stairs, sorry, and then he told me all that. So we cried again, and we met one more time after that. But that was when I started to go, holy cow, what is happening here? Do you want me to tell you a couple others?
Well, hold on. I want to ask you a couple questions about that.
Yeah.
So he's having this deep grief and sorrow. And
Deep.
one of the things that has happened over and over again in these near-death experiences are that they'll go to the other side, and maybe they were suicidal and they come back and they're like, okay, I'm never doing that again. Or they have a great fear of death, as many people on this planet do, and they come back and they're like, I'm cured, no fear of death anymore. And their perspective changes. So here's a man in deep grief, not living his life anymore because he's lost his two sons, won't go to counseling, comes to you, has these two experiences that to him were so real that he's sobbing and he's releasing. So Kristen, what was stuck in him and what was released as a result of these meditative Reiki sessions?
Okay. So what was stuck in him was, like you said, deep grief. He felt responsible for, he couldn't save his children. I mean, he has 3 children and 2 of them passed within like a year and a half or something like that of each other. And so this, as anyone who's had children, couldn't imagine how devastating that would be. And so when he got up to the light, I really feel, as I've been doing this for 8 years, we are in another dimension. However you want to look at that, whatever he experienced was truly real and profound for him. And so other clients that I've worked with, enough to where he told me, I know I can live now. I know I can go on with my life because I know my boys are happy and they are happy in heaven, and I will see them one day. And he actually said this interesting. He goes, maybe sooner than later. Because when he was up in that heavenly state, and I've had this with people before, where I get the feeling they don't want to come back down, very similar to a near-death experience. They don't want to come back. they are having a blast over there. So I have noticed that, and I will intuit that. Sometimes it used to worry me because I was like, not on my watch. You are
Right,
not
right.
leaving this earth in my office. You have to come back down. So I'll intuit that. And I have sometimes not led people all the way up the steps to the light because I intuit they are that close to possibly their grief is so deep that they do want to join their loved ones. So I'll listen. I'm very, very intuitive and I will listen to where people go. But for him, this was profound enough that where he said, I can live now. And his wife and I, how can you wrap your head around that, right? So my last conversation with him was, I don't understand all this, but I know you've been given a gift that is beyond our comprehension. And let's just take this as a gift. And I hope that you move forward. I've heard from her. I heard from her last summer and they're doing fine. And he decided to live. He decided to go on with life. And for a while there, she didn't know. She didn't know if he would want to check out. And that's what brought her to asking me to see him.
So do you think the rotator cuff injury that she was experiencing was a result of his grief lodging in her body, or was she just a vessel to get him to come to a session with you?
That's a great question, Lori. And really, truly, what happened was, so you know how life mirrors us, right? That life just mirrors us, and it will show us what we need to learn. So when she was in this grief because her husband's son died, second son, she had fallen and hurt herself. So I do believe the grief of him and the trauma made her disoriented enough to where she just got hurt. And then what happens is with the fascia tissue, because it's the most sensitive tissue in our body and it is the structure of our body, it shuts down around our grief or our injury. Okay. So again, I could tell you so many stories, so many amazing stories of when the fascia releases, but hers wouldn't release because her husband was still in deep grief. And so can you imagine living with someone who didn't want to live and she wants to go on and have a happy life, and she was very sorry about what happened, but she wants to have some hope with her husband, and he wasn't there. He'd rather had been gone at that moment, so therefore her body couldn't relax. So her rotator cuff was definitely because of his grief, but then let's look at the bigger picture of life. He would have never had that transformational moment if I hadn't been working with his wife. So, right. So there's
Right.
that thread of life
Yeah.
where that divine flow takes us. So I'd say yes on all of it.
Wow. Okay,
Mhm.
so one of the things I think that people who are watching are curious about are, you said that this has been like a work in progress and you've learned as you've gone along. I remember a long time ago watching a woman who did healing with tuning forks. And over
Mm.
her 20 years of doing this, she realized that certain things settled in certain areas of the body. Have you also noticed that?
Yes. Yeah. And yet it's interesting because I've heard those comments before where people are like, well, the neck always holds this or this or this. This body part holds this emotion. I don't necessarily, so I'm going to say yes and no to that. I just listen to the body, and sometimes it makes sense, and other times it's where people, if they have like scar tissue, right? Or if they have had previous injuries, sometimes the energy will settle more in those areas because already the fascia tissue is blocked. And so, for instance, sometimes it's people's knees because they've been runners their whole life, right? And then they get an upsetting thing happen in their lives and their knees blow up like balloons. Or lower back is huge for people for emotions, and maybe they have always had chronic back issues and just different things like that. So I do see this is what I do see. The left side is our emotional side. I do see that. The left side is our emotional side. It's our mothering and nurturing side. Okay. The right side is our father side, our get it done side, our work side. So it's really interesting, at least in my practice, when I'm working on the left side and I feel like limpness or I feel a heaviness, I know they're carrying a lot of emotion. And a lot of times that if I'm stretching them like this and it's heart sadness or so, I can feel that's a big connection when I'm taking the arm out here. The heart emotion will release through the arm. So I find that interesting. A lot of sexual trauma when I'm releasing the gracilis muscle or the inner thigh muscle and I'm pulling that leg out to the side, I'll get that direct line of sexual abuse from the, or even miscarriages or, abortions or anything like that. Anything that has to do with the sexual organs will come out from the leg that way. Sometimes I'll just put my hands on and the actual tissue will talk. So it seems like the trauma will be in different areas of, would make sense, right? That there's their lower body around where their sexual organs are would be housing that type of trauma, or their heart, if they had a broken heart, would be housing that trauma. I do know that the bottom of the feet tell me a lot about the entire body. So that's super interesting. I've never taken a course on reflexology, but I'll just be working on the bottom of the feet and then I'll hear a lot of messages relating to back into the body. So however the body wants to talk with me, it will. One of the stories in my book was a woman who and I won't give too many of those away because I can pull from many of them, but she was a woman who had 31 surgeries at the time she came to me and chronic diarrhea and zero memory of her childhood. Well, right there, I was like, okay, so this all makes sense, right? She's had some sort of trauma. It's never my place to tell someone this is the trauma you have. So she came in because her counselor had referred her to me because she could not make sense of her life. She could not understand why she was so depressed her whole life, didn't want to live, like that feeling of just dread and 31 surgeries. Well, as I'm working on her body and, excuse me, this chronic diarrhea that had lasted for 10 years. Uh,
Whoa.
yes,
I think
three
10
times.
days would be a lot.
Yes, several times a day. Like I think she said something like 7 or 8 times a day. So, and forgive me in my book if I said something different, but it was a big number per day of what she had been dealing with. So she was a mess, right? So I start to work on her. And so since I hear and see the tissue, every part that she had had an operation on had trauma, which was super interesting, had sexual trauma or had this type of trauma, or she had, there were, without getting too graphic, there were very specific parts that correlated with a message. And of course, I'm super, super cautious of saying, hey, you were sexually molested. I never want to pry that way or lead someone that way. I'll say, can you remember anything? Does this? So with her, she's like, I don't have any memory. I said, well, I'm getting a lot of information, but I want you to go home and I just want you to sit with this. Maybe look at some pictures of when you were a child, things like that. Next time she came back, her diarrhea was gone. And she was like, just like shocked. She was shocked. Then she started to slowly remember some stuff. But what she did remember, which I thought was really interesting, she remembered more of what her siblings went through than her. So it's almost also that possibly part of her trauma was taking on her siblings' trauma as well.
Just like the wife with the husband.
Exactly, exactly. So here she is, probably, wanting to help her siblings, but she couldn't. So their trauma also resided in her body and also her own trauma. And today she's thriving and happy, and she is like sending everybody to me because she has had a second lease on life. And so I'm just honored to be a conduit, right? Just to say, hey, and it's nothing I'm doing. It's literally I'm reading their subconscious mind that they cannot handle. So what happens, Lori, is when a situation is so difficult for someone to handle, let's say childhood trauma, right? The mind shuts down and it goes into the body. That's what that body keeps a score book. So, and there's so many other books like Dr. Peter Levine's book, Waking the Tiger. And again, I could go on and on with all the different research on this. So what happens is our psyche goes, this is too much. The body says, I'll take it. Now, Dr. Candace Pert's work showed us that the mind and body are one. You cannot separate the mind and body. I'm sorry, you just cannot. It's impossible. What goes on in the mind goes on in the body, the mind. So it makes sense that the body would say, hey, I got this for you until you are able to handle these memories. And so then
Wow.
what happens in the body, so now let's kind of take a shift to our acupressure or acupuncture meridian lines. You know, you go to acupuncture and they'll put a needle here and here. Well, they're doing what I'm doing on a different way. They're opening up the fascia tissue. I open it up through stretch and my hands. Okay. So it's about energy. Okay. So we have these meridians that run through our body for our health and wellness, right? For our main optimal chi, our life force. And so what happens in trauma is that the fascia will lock up, right? And now that energy can't go. Okay. And so energy cannot be created or destroyed. You cannot you have to do something. You have to do something to get that energy out. Okay. So now this energy is getting blocked, and anything that's blocked is going to cause illness, disease, or pain. So the fascia tissue has more nerve endings than any other tissue in the body. So you are going to feel a lot of pain when that tissue tightens up. And then we are supposed to run our energy clear every day. But if it gets stuck, then the body actually cuts those areas off. I mean, excuse me, the mind cuts the area of the body off that it has stored the trauma. So it starts to fester. So it makes a lot of sense. So now let's go back up to the head. If you loop and loop and loop and loop about something, you're going to feel sick, right? You're going to feel disoriented and not grounded. You're going to feel confused in life. Take that to the body now. If the body can't release, you're going to get illness and disease. So again, does that I'm sure that makes sense. It's this mind body
Yes.
connection that I have found so fascinating. So even though my work is very mystical, it is very scientific. And because
Sure.
I deal with the mind, body, and spirit, you cannot separate them. In my
Wow.
book, you can't separate them. So it's fascinating.
Wow. I
I
think
know.
that there are people listening right now who are probably having some very profound aha moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
because one of the things that's so fascinating about these two specific examples that you gave is that they may have taken on trauma in their own bodies, not just from their own experience in the mind, but in absorbing experiences as somebody that they were living with. In the first story, the wife absorbing the husband's
Yeah.
sadness. In the second one, the woman absorbing her siblings'
Yes.
trauma. And
Right.
so, Kristen, as an empath, you're probably the perfect person to ask this to. And I guess I
Mm-hmm.
think of my sister, like, you've worked on my
Mm-hmm.
sister, you've worked on my mom,
Mm-hmm.
you've worked on my
Mm-hmm.
friends, you've worked on, I've sent my son, I've sent so many people to work. And then, and I'm thinking, this makes my mind like turn of these different things.
Yes.
You're an empath. So the people who are watching who are
Mm-hmm.
empath
Mm-hmm.
meaning you have the ability to take on the emotions and the maybe experiences, trauma, joy, whatever it is. You're
Mm-hmm.
absorbing others'
Yeah.
energy and you're
Mm-hmm.
taking it into your own body. And I know that you are that, but you have found a way to block
Mm-hmm.
this because you're sitting here day after day working on these people who have these issues, yet you're being empathic and not letting that in.
Right.
So for the people who are watching, I think it would be really helpful if you could share maybe what you do to keep that wall up so that those experiences are not coming in and attaching to your body, or if they're filtering through, they're being released by you.
Well, I'll start with a story that actually made me want to quit because it freaked me out so much. So I had an experience where it stuck to me, and then I was going to quit, and then I went and I got training. So I know what you're saying, and I would love to answer that. Now um I'm going to start with doing a Reiki session on a client in Phoenix. And I had been working on him physically for a long time, and just releasing some stress and just regular releasing of just body tension and stress. And so what I did was uh, told him, hey, we can do Reiki as well. All right. So anyway, so what I told is we can do Reiki on you. And so to help him with his stress because he couldn't figure out his stress. His stress was getting overwhelming and his body wasn't healing from the physical issues that he was having. So what happened was when I led him into that guided meditation and I relaxed his body, I had my hands on his stomach and I felt like something wanted to come out, but it was staying trapped in there. These emotions were staying strapped in his stomach. And I remember just staying there. And at the time, he was just breathing and relaxing and trying to let this trapped, whatever it was, wanting to come out. And then finally I told him, hey, this is not what this is about. We're not going to here to force your body to release something it's not wanting to release. And so I just said, and then he goes, you know what, Kristen, just let's do it again. Just put your hands on my stomach and let me just try to relax and just allow this, whatever this is to come out. Well, Lori, I had my hands on his stomach and all of a sudden he started wailing and crying. And this energy, this is at the beginning of my journey here. This energy came up and it went through my arms. It was like a lifetime of his trapped emotions came through my arms and my hair on my arms stood up straight. The room was filled with something I didn't know what was. And I was just standing there. I felt like someone had just thrown up on me, basically. And he was wailing, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yes, yes." So we got him settled down. I relaxed him, finished up the Reiki session, and of course he felt like a million bucks. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel so much better." But I was like in shock because I'm still feeling my hair standing on edge. This energy was so fierce. And so he left, and I did not know what to do. So I took a sage stick and I'm just blessing the house because I'm like, what is this? Well, when he was releasing, he said, I feel like something in my life is always trying to take me, like to overcome me or overtake me. Some sort of energy is trying to overtake me. And I was like, and again, at this time, I was like, I don't even know what this means, but he left and I'm left here with this weird feeling in my body. My hair was standing up. My husband gets home and I'm like, I'm done. I'm quitting. This is it. No way. No way. So he like grabbed me by the shoulders and he said, Kristen, you've been given a gift that is very important for you to keep going forward. He said, you are stronger than any of this energy. So just pull yourself together and rise
Mike
above.
said that to you?
Mike said that to me.
I love that about him.
He like grabbed me by the shoulder and I was just like, ah. So that's when I reached out to Julia, and she is a teacher of spiritual people, right? And she not only reads people, but also she teaches people. So I signed up for all these classes from her. She's the one that taught me. So what I do, no fail, at the beginning of every day, I put the light around me. I have a prayer, a mantra that I use every day, and I do not go a day without it. It's just, I have learned. It's like getting dressed in the morning for me. I wouldn't go out naked. I mean, I'm going to put on my clothes. I'm going to do this mantra. So every day I put a love and light or mantra around me. And then I ask for guidance and I ask to be service of the world. And I ask for my highest good and the highest good of those around me. So it's this thing I do every day. Call my angels in, ask God to lead me on my path. So, with that being said, now the next thing I do before and after every client, I have a light. I picture a light or a tree root, doesn't matter. And it's at the base of my tailbone. And I grow that light into the earth, just like a tree, right? Because a tree that has deep roots, you can't knock a tree that has deep roots down. So I grow my roots or this light down to the center of the earth. Now, the center of the earth, I picture and imagine that the center of the earth is a core and it's iron and crystal. And I do believe that is the center of the earth. It has, a magna to it, elements to it. So I try to see my roots going into that for deep, deep restorative healing. And I pull the energy up into me. Okay. Just like a tree would, right? Then I picture myself under an energetic waterfall of pure unconditional love, washing away what no longer serves me. Our creator's love, divine love, however you want to see it. So I just see our creator washing away what no longer serves me. And then I see that light come in and around me. And I've learned to do it like quick. So I'll see a client and I'll be like, okay, thank you. And they go, I wash my hands. I send the roots to the ground, I wash away what no longer serves me, and I put the light around me. Now, what I do in my room, because again, of that first incident that I told you, that this energy hangs out. And I mean, I could tell you stories of people, yeah, anyways, in hospitals where they actually, let's just take that out. Okay. So anyways, so in my office, what I do before I see people is I put the light in the corner of the rooms on the floor, and I put the light on the ceilings, and then I connect them like two, right? Two squares or rectangles, whatever shape the room is. And I put a light in the middle of the room, and I connect them like an upside down pyramid, and I connect them like a regular pyramid, and the two pyramid peaks touch in the middle of the room. Then I shoot a beam of light to the heavens and then to the earth to ground the room. So this grounding exercises for me and for my room has kept me safe. The last thing I do as an empath, because I am so empathic, I literally could read you, right? You know, I could. I could read you right now. I could read everything going on in you. That's not my business. So I don't do that. So first of all, I set the intention to only do for someone for healing, because that's not my business, right? And so I respect that. But also I what was I saying? I was saying I
You were
do
talking
the
about grounding
light.
the room and how you have the room grounded, and the last thing that you do.
Okay, so then the last thing I do is just ask for their team of angels or light to come in and mine. So, this is what I was going to say. It's all coming to me now. I do not think about a person afterwards, and I hope that doesn't sound cruel. If something is really sad, it will hit me, but I have to release it. Because if I sit there and think about them over and over again, then I will take that energy upon me. So I always send them on their journey for the best for them. And I like send so much love with them. And I care, anyone who's worked with me, I care so much about each person that comes in, but I have to set those energetic boundaries because I cannot get sick. It just wouldn't be worth it, right? I mean, to get sick. But this is a good lesson for all of us, because when we take on other people's trauma or illness, or we try to solve something for someone, we end up getting sick. So I love how you pointed that out in my stories.
Well, I have two questions about that.
Yeah.
So people that are okay, so I'm like, I know you. And how many years, Kristen, have I been saying to you, you will be a known healer? And actually, like as you're talking, I'm reminded of why I've said this to you over and over and over again. Kristen, I think I want you to come back to my channel like as a reoccurring guest, to come back and have these conversations. Like when I come back from my cabin in September, I'm going to have you back on, because you keep on accumulating these stories. And every time we talk, you have these golden, I call them gold nuggets, that you're throwing out there and somebody is picking them up.
Yeah.
But if I'm in the audience and I'm watching right now and I'm listening to you, I'm like, yeah, of course she can do this, because she's already so powerful. She's already doing X, Y, Z. But I know, and I know you, and I see you shaking your head no, that you don't believe that this is just something that you're capable of doing, which is why you're sharing this with people. So tell people why you think that anybody watching can do the protection that you just shared with us.
Okay. The protection, Lori, and anything any kind of remote viewing, remote reading energy, anything like that, seeing angels, anything like that, any of us can do, because we are all from the same source.
Yes.
So, I mean, I would, yeah, maybe I was called, and I was called to do this. I was definitely
A
called.
million percent.
Yeah. So, my husband always goes, I don't want that. He's like, I don't want to do what you do.
Well, it's
And
funny
I
that he
get,
said he doesn't want that, because you and I both know that he came in as your angel protector. So
yes, he
everybody,
did.
even somebody as powerful as
Yes.
you, needs somebody to protect them. And that is your husband,
Yes.
100%.
100%. He came in. There were several players in this life thing that walked me through, and I'm thankful, right? I'm thankful.
Yeah.
But so as far as, yes, everyone can do this, because this is another thing I learned, Lori, on my path, that our imagination is our creativity. We are creative beings. And so whatever you can imagine, you can achieve. Okay, so as I'm going through this and seeing these amazing stories and these amazing healings of things that the doctors could not find, I realize that I am just the conduit, but these people are coming in and they are pulling in that energy for their own healing. Okay, they're accepting
So
that
it's a
energy. So
dual. It's not just
it,
one, it's synergistic.
right, exactly. Whatever doctor you go to, even, you have to agree with that, what their protocol or what they're doing for you. You have to be in resonance because your body needs to be in resonance. So we're creative beings. And so if you stay in silence or you do what we've talked about, this walking meditations or some way that you connect to something greater, like something where it calms you, nature, going into meditation quietness, you're going to start to develop and hear beyond the 3D world, right? You're going to start to just go, oh, what's this intuition mean? Or, oh, I feel like I just saw something, or I know something's going to happen. You got to start trusting those because it's like a muscle. You have to exercise it. And it's, however much you want to take it, you can probably just take it so you have intuition for your own life so that you can move forward and make decisions for the best career or job or relationship. Or maybe you want to have intuition for a loved one who you think might be ill, but you're intuiting, like, what's making them so sick? And maybe you can be that conduit to help them. So I do believe we all can do it. And because we are creative beings and what we imagine, we can achieve. So this is my life goal of releasing, and I'm going to say something funny in a second here, but releasing my limited beliefs. And some of my clients are always like, Kristen, I can't do that. And I said, I think you can. And I go, here's my goal. I want to be able to like disappear and then come back. And I joke about that with my clients, but that's how much I want to push the boundaries of who we are as beings on this earth, because I think we are way more than we've ever allowed ourselves to be. And we can be in a place of abundance and peace despite what's going on in this world, because we are creators, right? And I know you're resonating.
I am laughing at you because you just said that. And I was like, if anybody's going to disappear and come back, it's going to be you, number one. But Kristen, why
Amazing.
not? Because what is happening in the world, and I've talked about this on my show pretty recently. We're filming right now at the very end of April 2025. These videos live forever. And what's happened is that telepathy tapes have come out, and telepathy tapes have shown the world that telepathy isn't just happening for people when they have a near-death experience and they're communicating with angels and passed away loved ones on the other side. It's happening with 3D beings that are living in a body, even though they may not be that attached to their body as non-speaking autistic children. However, they are showing evidential proof that they are communicating telepathically, like not with 50% accuracy, but like 100% accuracy. And I've been saying, this is the 4-minute mile of consciousness.
Thank you.
Yes. It's the 4-minute mile of consciousness.
Yeah.
And one person, 10 people, 100 people,
yeah.
1 million people, 1 billion people realize that it can happen, and it just happens. So for you, we are going to get to the point, I think, in our lifetime where you could disappear and come back. I have friends who I have a friend who has a mother, you know her. I have a friend who has a mother who got involved in all these cults and meditated hours and hours and hours a day. And she would walk in and her mother would be levitating in a cross-leg position above the ground, and she would see it. Like these are not imaginary wishful thinking. These are real abilities that I think have been hidden, forgotten, whatever you want to say. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, so it's interesting. First, you tapped on a couple things that came to my mind, but one is when you said cult. Now, we both know our friend was very wounded by her mother's.
Yes, she was.
So I know that a lot of people possibly on this channel, and they've been grown up with faith or religion or spirituality, and to venture into like this kind of stuff could feel evil or it can feel like you're going to open yourself up. So that is really interesting. I mean, I am very woman of faith, right? You know me,
Yes,
and
you came from a very religious background and you had to shed a lot of the religious doctrine for spirituality. And I was with
yes,
you right after you'd be on that journey.
because our creator is massive, and
Yes.
I was seeing it firsthand. And so when I first started venturing into meditation, I put the light around me. If I ever run into, a message, or, for better lack of words, without freaking people out, but I think your people can understand this, a
Yeah, probably.
spirit, or an entity, or an angel, when I'm in meditation, I ask them to show me the light. Nothing gets in my space that is not of my highest good.
And that's free will.
Nothing.
So I want to shout
That's
out
right.
to free will. Everybody,
Right.
you have free will. Like they can't overrule your free will. You have
Thank
to
you.
allow.
Yes. So that's that part. And as far as the telepathy tapes and all that stuff, like, it's amazing. I wish everyone, and that's really truly why I wrote this book, because I feel like my release of my trauma had me so shed from all of my beliefs and my family and friends and everything. I was just standing there and I had to rebuild my life. And I started to shed everything that no longer served me, anything I thought of myself. And then these abilities came, right? So it's like these limiting thoughts are almost like blankets over our head, or cloaks around us that are keeping us from believing who we truly are. So a really cute story is, I mean, it's actually so fun to be able to do this. And I know that more people, as they learn the 4 minute mile, they will be like, holy cow. So
Yeah.
my daughter adopted a child, so she'll be a year this summer. So it's my granddaughter. But of course, this beautiful baby is in someone else's tummy, right? And as Taylor wanting to adopt and getting so excited, she had no way to know what was going on with the baby, and unless she talked to the birth mom, then they have a good relationship. But so I would just tap in. I tap into the baby, and I would tell Taylor she's getting squeezed right now. And then Taylor would get a call from the birth mom going, I'm getting really tight contractions and I have to go in because I have to get some medicine to relax the tummy. And then I'd be like, the baby's breech right now. And then the woman would call and say, the baby's breech right now. And so up until little Mila was born, like, Mila and I were communicating, and makes me want to cry, but I just love her so much, and it doesn't matter if we're all one. So now this baby Mila, I'm like, you are a powerful baby, because we were chatting away, and
Wow. And it's all,
she's
Kristen, I love that you're saying this because I'm thinking like, as our kids have kids, can they begin to work telepathically? Are we going to be able to build this in for the speaking children, not just the autistic non-speaking? Are we going to
absolutely.
remember this?
Absolutely. So, people are starting to bring me their dogs, their horses, everything has consciousness. And if we can just relax and trust what we're seeing. So, the animals will tell me I have a toothache, or I have this, or I have that, or, autistic children. I have a family that has an autistic son. I would like to work with him a little more, but I work with the family. So I tell them, hey,
Beautiful.
he knows what you're thinking.
He does.
FYI, he knows everything you're thinking and feeling. And so, it's been very eye-opening. And once we realize, so it's a cute story.
Kristen, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I've got people outside, so I have to go in
Okay.
like 2 minutes. I have to,
Okay. So to
I'll
ask you
edit
one
this.
more
So
question.
before we go, Kristen, first of all, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have accumulated and giving people some great places to go. You wrote your book. I feel so honored that you were writing it last summer at my house for a while. So tell people where they can get this book and what they would expect from it.
Okay, well, yes, so I did write it at your house, and it was a sacred house. You have sacred space, so
It's
I
for
thank you
sale.
so much.
Somebody needs to buy it.
Yeah, she's trying to sell her house. So I went into deep meditation prior to, I knew I was be writing this book for years. And I said, I will write it if you write it through me, basically. So my book is called Mending the Broken Soul, Discovering Your Body's Innate Ability to Heal and Awakening to Your True Self. So that in a nutshell is what it's about. So it's about my healing journey of releasing my trauma. It's about how the innate abilities started to come. It's about then the healing stories of my clients and what they've discovered. And then it has tools in it to help you with healing of your trauma and moving your trauma out of your body. And then some ways to master your life. And so it is, so the feedback I'm getting, which I was told by source, by spirit, is it is a living entity, and I am just thankful that it came through me. That's all I have to say. But the
Wow.
people who are getting healing, it's been profound. I have heard them say, this feels like it's living. And I said, well, that's what I was told. So it's nothing that I'm saying I claim. Again, I'm saying I was a vessel, and I'm honored to be a part of this book, and I'm honored to stand by its side. I will just show what it looks like. I'm honored
And
to
I'll put
stand
a
by its
link. I'll
side.
put a link below, but you also
Okay.
have your website. So tell people your website.
Right. And then the book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, uh, Barnes and Noble, Google, Lulu, and it will eventually soon be on Cabo. And I'm working on my Audible. My
Awesome.
website is wellbalancedfarm.com, all one word, wellbalancedfarm.com. And my email is wellbalanced@gmail.com.
Beautiful. Kristen, I
And
want to thank
the
you.
healing
Oh
dog.
my gosh, my Emmy. Oh, I love her. I miss
I
her.
know you love her.
Oh, Kristen, I want to thank you so much for taking the
Thank you.
time to share the extraordinary experiences that you've been having with your healing. And thank you so much for what you're doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Well, thank you, because I know what you're doing is so amazing. And so that's why we resonate so much, because we are that bridge. Mark our words, right? In 10 years, we'll be wondering why we ever thought a negative thought.
I
Like
love
how?
that. And of course, this channel would be nothing without everybody who tunes in. So thank you,
Yes, thank
everybody, for
you.
watching.
Thank you,
Love you,
Lori, and thanks for all the
Kristen.
work you do. Okay, mwah, love you.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.